Recently, I had a friend reach out to me because she was having a really hard time at work and she just needed some advice. And normally, I want to be there for my friends, my family, my colleagues, whether they're having problems at work or in their personal life. But honestly, I felt so overwhelmed with just everything going on in the world that I felt like I couldn't help her. I couldn't relate to her. And that really surprised me. And it turns out that I'm not the only one going through this. Apparently, there's something called empathy fatigue, and a lot of us are suffering through it. So I want to help share some information I learned on how we can combat it and start to gain some empathy back. Just a quick recap. Empathy, very simply put, is our ability to understand how other people are feeling. And it's super important because it helps us relate to others, build stronger bonds, relationships, and friendships. We have been getting less empathetic, just like as a society. For example, the University of Michigan did this huge study where they took 14,000 students and analyzed empathy data. And they found that students today are far less empathetic than students were back in the late 1970s and early 1980s. So what exactly happened? Well, according to researchers, they started seeing a decline in empathy in the year 2000. And that's kind of around the same time that the internet got really popular. There was more digitalization of information. We had these digital lives that we were creating. And there's not like hard evidence to suggest that the internet and social media has made us less empathetic, but there are some theories that could be one of the big reasons as to why we're less empathetic to each other. And the reason why that's a problem is because it can actually affect our mental health, our physical health, the way we interact with each other, how we interact at work, our ability to connect and forge meaningful relationships with people, even our ability to succeed in corporate life and our careers. And the pandemic made things so much worse because we were just so overwhelmed by traumatic events and information that it kind of numbed us to all these really horrible things that were happening around the world. And that also creates a lot of empathy fatigue, which basically means you don't have the energy in order to feel and understand what other people are feeling. And instead, you might get angry, or you might become more judgmental, or you might snap at them. And that's just something that we've seen too, is this rise of anger in our society. So the big question here is, how exactly do we fix it? There are 6 things we can start doing to build back our empathy. The first thing is just being more curious about the world around you. People who are curious, they tend to learn a lot more about their surroundings, about the connections they have, whether it's a neighbor or their mailman or the people they're meeting at the grocery store. And also, they're observing more of their surroundings. So they might notice that the trees in their neighborhood are getting pretty sick, and so they might try to figure out what's going on there. Or they're just curious about learning more about someone, so they end up becoming great listeners, which ultimately helps you develop stronger empathy skills because you're listening to what people are saying and you're taking in their perspective. The second thing is find things that unite you rather than divide you. There's so many things in the world that we fight about nowadays, whether it's political parties or our beliefs, but finding similarities, whether it's where you went to college or what favorite TV shows you have, that can actually make you feel closer to the other person that you're trying to connect with. The third thing is perspective taking. You've probably heard the phrase, walk a mile in someone else's shoes, which basically means you don't really know what someone's going through unless you've lived through their experiences yourself, right? And so perspective taking is the ability to take a step back and really try to understand where someone else is coming from. And that's something that we're really having a hard time doing nowadays because a lot of us are divided based from screens, we're separated because of our digital lives, or we're just not interacting with people as much as we used to in person or through community engagements or whatever the case may be. But ultimately, by trying to understand where a person is coming from, seeing how they live, seeing how they work or what they go through, that actually makes us relate to them better. This one's gonna seem a little obvious, but it's listening and sharing. But I have to be clear that listening to people, it's harder and harder nowadays. We've kind of been trained by social media to be putting our feelings and thoughts out first. But by taking a step back and focusing on what someone is saying and hearing them and relating to them, we have a better opportunity to empathize with them. And similarly, you shouldn't just listen, but also share, because sharing your perspective, how you're feeling, how you're relating to somebody, that can actually help you forge a deeper connection and bond to the person you're interacting with. I really like this one. It's experiencing art and culture. Whether you're going to see an indie movie or go to a museum or look at some artwork, what you're doing in those moments is you're looking at a piece of content or art that has an interpretation of the world, right? That's someone else's perspective of how they are experiencing life. And when you do stuff like that, you're introducing yourself to so many different ways that people are learning and being and experiencing. And that just opens you up to so many different types of viewpoints and perspectives. Personally, I love this. I love looking at artwork. I love feeling other people's feelings through art and culture. And it's just a really good way to expand your horizon and build stronger connections with people. Number 6 is meditation. And I know you've probably seen so many articles about why meditation is so great. I have tried on and off to meditate, and sometimes I'm successful. I'll go through like several streaks of doing it, but then I'll fall off. But I found this really cool research that I wanted to share. Apparently, researchers at Emory University found that when people focused on doing compassionate meditation, which is basically like a form of meditation where you're really intentional about feeling, for example, connected instead of isolated, caring about others instead of being judgmental, and you're like repeating these phrases to yourself, it actually can help you become more empathetic to others around you. And also there's been researchers who found that people who practice like compassionate meditation or just meditation in general, when they do these brain scans of these people meditating, that the area in their brain that is focused on empathy, that lights up. So empathy is one of those things that you can train yourself to also experience and practice so that you could be better at connecting when relating to other people. So those are just 6 steps that can help you become more empathetic. But you probably are wondering, why should I work this hard if so many people around me are mean, rude, angry, and they probably won't be empathetic back to me? I totally get it. I have been around people recently, and I was really surprised by the level of anger and rudeness that I experience when I've gone, for example, to the grocery store, or I have been interacting with neighbors, or just like out in the city. But the reality is we are far lonelier than ever before, and we're also very disconnected from each other. And if we're able to start kind of building back that empathy, recognizing it's a problem and trying to help train ourselves to relate better to our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, even strangers, it could probably bring us closer together. For me personally, I want to be more empathetic, not just to random strangers, but also to the people I care about. I want to be able to be available for my friend when she's having a hard time at work. I want to be a better partner. I want to be a better sibling. I want to be a better friend, a better citizen, a better human. And the reality is that empathy is really natural. It's not just a human experience. It's a worldly experience. Animals like dogs, squirrels, elephants, cats, they show empathy. And I don't want to lose that part of me. So that's basically my spiel for why I think we should all try to practice being more empathetic, because I think it will actually probably make our experience in the world a little bit better than it is right now. But let me know what you think. Do you find this interesting? Do you find yourself feeling empathy fatigue? How have you combated it? And if you like this video and you want to see more, hit that like and subscribe button. It really makes a huge difference. Thank you for watching.